to say that running has saved my life would be an understatement, because I have a lot of energy. I have a lot of enthusiasm. I'm greedy, which is why I've achieved really big goals in running, because I get greedy with sport, what I want to achieve, what I think is good enough. But if I took those traits, and I take it to social events, well, that same greed, that same heaps of energy, it's just led to me getting in bloody trouble and hurting myself and then hurting others, because they don't want to deal with the stress of what might happen. And will they still be able to communicate with me the next day? Will I be okay? This weekend I basically drunk so much that I pretty much blacked out, I would say, unconscious. I was face down in a place that I don't even know where I was. I think I was alone, and all I remember is a nurse talking to me and shouting my name, like, Stephen, Stephen, like, wake up. And I just remember thinking, like, just help me. And I felt so vulnerable that I could barely move my legs, I could barely move my arms, my face is scraped because I could barely pick my head up off the ground. And I was just dying to explain that this is my third time drinking this year. This is not a common thing for me. This is not a every weekend you'll find me here and you'll start to get pissed off that you have to help me. And I get taken away in an ambulance, and I wake up at, I think, 8:30 in the morning. The only memories I have is the nurse telling me off almost to get up or wake up. I can't remember I'm not lecturing her. She was doing her job. I wake up at 8:30 in the morning, and I've these tubes in my arm where they were doing blood tests, and any drugs, Stephen, any drugs, Stephen, and I'm laying there like dying, no, no, and they did these tests, and sadly it's not the first time, something like that would have happened, and I've had a lot of mental health struggles, and I didn't believe that this was a episode that had risen from a mental health struggle. When you unravel something that happened, rage when you're driving home from work, anger with your partner that you don't normally have, or lack of patience with your kids that, you're not normally like that. Mental health peaks and valleys show up sometimes in situations like that. But how is this connected to running? Having gone through what I did on Saturday and Sunday, I've been out running, right? And I've been doing my runs over this past few days, and it's made me then think, like, that's the first advantage of running before I talk about that. The fact that I can die all day Sunday, and I mean really struggle, and then on Monday, I can get up with some sense of purpose to get running going again. And I have that as a backup almost, like, let's get back running. Let's get out there and get this routine going again. And I think without it, I'd have been a lot more depressed, you could say, for the majority of the week. But you can instantly get back into that routine, instantly eat better, instantly get the hydration going. Even though that's really important for life, you're really doing it for the training and the running, but it's profiting life. What occurred to me over the last few days is that I've been, going through these periods where I'm not necessarily supporting myself as best I can. And what I mean by that is sometimes I'm really doing a good job of taking care of the training, but maybe I'm not keeping on top of the little things that got me back to a really good mental headspace, right? And that's journaling, that's meditating, that's taking time out of your day where you're a bit more present. And if you looked at your screen time on your phone, there's probably a direct correlation that if it's over 3 hours a day, it's possible that there's a little bit of mental health stuff there, that you're interacting with that phone a lot for constant stimulus. And that mental health is really an inability to sit and be present in that moment, in that day, at that time. I think running for me is one of the few times a day that I'm fully present and I'm fully immersed in how am I feeling, right? How's my body feeling? How are my legs feeling? What's my heart rate sort of sitting at? Am I feeling good? Am I feeling strong? You're really present. And not everybody improves their mental health by being present in yoga or by meditating and being really present. Some people are, more, I feel more present when I'm cooking, and that really helps my mental health. I feel more, present when I'm cleaning the house, and even though I'm active, I'm in the moment. I'm right there. I'm not cleaning, the house with my phone in my hand going through TikTok. But if you have been going through anything at all, there's definitely steps you can take. The things I haven't been doing is when you get up in the morning, just writing a few things down on a piece of paper, just some journaling. Like, what's your plan of the day? What did you do well yesterday? What could you do a better job of? Where are you in life? Are you in a good place? Are you not? Start to write it down, okay? And then write down what you're going to try to achieve that day. And then at the end of the day, you can write down, how did it go? And you can also include your training in here as well. This doesn't just have to be about life. And I think we do a great job actually sometimes on that note of planning our training, our running, but we don't really plan life. We don't really treat it like that's a thing. And the next thing that you need to really do is, if you have a bit of an injury like hamstring, calf, doesn't matter. You set up a bit of a rehab routine, a bit of a sort of like, this is how I'm going to nurse it back to being better. And we don't really do that with our mental health. We don't prioritize it. We don't say to ourselves, how am I going to get in a really good place over this next month, over these next 6 months, over this next year, blah, blah, blah. And that comes down to really good daily actions that, might really help with that. I think it's like, if you're in the shower, just, focus on the hot water, focus on being present in that moment. Pick little things throughout your day that you're just going to be really present. I think they talk about like, drinking a cup of tea or coffee, but, ditch the phone for 15 minutes, maybe stare out the window. Just, drink your cup of coffee and watch the world go by. I think another staple is going for a 10 to 15 minute walk, but without the phone. So no podcast, no music, you're just watching the world go by, but you're present, you're in that moment at that period of time. Then when you start looking after your little things, where this is kind of called like the choice point, where you've decided there's a certain type of person you'd like to be, there's certain things you'd like to really achieve in life, and you're either working towards those things or you're moving away from those things. So that's like, all the decisions that I'm making today, all these micro decisions, whether it's like just going to the shop, whether it's speaking to people a certain way, whether it doesn't matter. It's every decision that you're possibly making that day. If you see a bit of rubbish on the floor, are you the type of person that picks it up and puts it in a bin, or are you not, right? And that's how then you live your life. You're either making decisions that are moving towards that person or away. Do you want to be wasteful with money? Do you want to be a jealous person? Do you want to be a smart person? Should you start studying a bit more? It's up to you. What type of person you want to be? Who do you want to be? How do you want to dress? People don't think of these things. It's almost like we slump into an autopilot of, this is the way I am. I'm just going to accept that. And where I've done a really good job of in life, aside from drinking too much, being bloody face down, and I'm not going to make a joke about that because it really did upset me. And I really mean that. Like it upset me a lot, because somehow I've turned into a fucking pretty good person, and it kills me when I do things like that, because that's very irresponsible. But what I've done a really good job of in life is I've not set limits on what can be achieved or how we live a certain way, or that we have to live a certain way. I will never understand, I talk about it a lot. I ran 209 for a bloody marathon. I'll never understand that. But I'll also never understand that when I've showed up to training groups, that I've just believed I can do it. I've believed that I can go run with Mo and Bashir and these titans. I've just believed it. And then I've almost willed it into existence through the hard work to get there. So when you're thinking about this, who do you want to be? What do you want to achieve? Where do you want your life to go? Think about it from any angle you want, and there's no limit on it. There might be a lot of hard work between now and getting there, but there is no limit on where you want to dream that it might be able to get to. And that's so important. And then comes just the daily work, the daily work towards that. The other absolute luxury thing in life that I've been so fortunate of is to work with therapists. I would lose count how many therapists I've had help with now, and at the time you're not sure how much it's working. And the reason for that is because mental health isn't fixed in a day. You don't wake up and journal and meditate that day and speak to your therapist for an hour and then wake up on Tuesday and life's amazing, life's wonderful. But life didn't become likely bad or ruddy, you could call it, like instantly. It probably happened over a long period of time, that your brain literally got fed up living the way that you're living, or being the way that you're existing, right? And so you have to fix it in like stepping stones. And so I'm lucky that I've had access to, help this entire journey, specifically through sport, because the likes of the governing bodies like Ireland and Northern Ireland and even Under Armour, got behind me during periods of struggle when we recognized there was a struggle there. And I do remember calling the doctor and saying, I need help, that I really struggle with life and that I struggle sometimes to process things. And I've been so fortunate. But if you do believe that, you need help, and needing help is so overshadowed with like there's something wrong, right? And there is something wrong. Don't sugarcoat it. When there's something wrong with your hamstring and you're going to see the physio, it's not a big deal. But when there's something wrong with perhaps how your brain at that moment in time is processing things or struggling to process things, there's this weird like stigma behind it, right? But there shouldn't be. And so sometimes you just need a little bit of help. So today's video is a paid partnership. And I of course get lots of emails about different types of partnerships, and this one felt very relatable to my channel and today's video. And so part of the recovery process for me, going through mental health difficulties, was working with a therapist. And that's where today's, paid partnership really comes in. So it's with BetterHelp. And on BetterHelp, all you have to do is go on their website. There's a link in the description. And you go on their website, you fill in some details, and they pair you up with a therapist that is able to help, is able to listen, and is able to, from that anonymous perspective, which I think is so important, is able to guide you through perhaps what, might be a tough time. I still remember that first call with a doctor that I had, and normally my calls with the doctor was about blood testing for iron levels or vitamin D. And it probably shocked him when I was on the phone saying that I just felt like I needed help. And help meant that I wasn't happy with how I was coping with certain things, or unable to cope with certain things. And so once I started working with therapists, there are tips and techniques and skills that you learn that then develop ways to get yourself out of some of the little ruts that we often come up against. Or perhaps it's skills around breathing techniques, or skills around how we look towards the future and then work towards something that we'd really like to achieve. It's not all therapy to go, back through your past and cry about it. Sometimes it's just, how am I going to be able to cope with right now? How could I cope with right now a little bit better? And if I could get through today a little bit better, it might build this rhythm and momentum towards what might be a better life. But running for me has been an anchor in this entire journey. I'm never going to be like fixed. And I hate using terms like that, but I don't know how else to express this. I'm always going to struggle. I'll not often know when it's going to happen, but a bit just like when the hamstring or the quad goes and you look at it and you're like, oh my goodness, I wasn't doing my gym, I wasn't doing my rehab, I haven't got, sports massage therapy for 6 weeks. Well, there's a paper trail of why the quad just went. You increased training, you weren't doing the stuff that you need to do to keep your body strong, you haven't had any sort of soft tissue therapy or physio, bang, hamstring or quad goes. Well, mental health's the same. Recognizing that there's something not quite right, or that you'd not like to feel certain ways that you do at times, is really important. And then you start moving through some of those steps, even if it's just being a bit more present, even if it's trying to cut down screen time at certain times. Maybe it's eating a bit better, maybe it's sleeping a bit more, maybe it's hydrating a bit more. It might be very surface level why you're feeling what you're feeling. But if you're relating to a lot of what I'm saying, and honestly, if you're like me, I don't know the last time that I felt bloody comfortable just sitting in my own skin, which is quite sad. I bounce around a lot, which makes it really difficult to have constant friends, be in relationships, for example, because I'm always moving. I'm not doing that because I love flying, I love moving all over the place. I just really struggle some days sitting in my own skin. Like, kid, there's nothing you have to do for the rest of today. You can order whatever you want for dinner if that's what you feel like doing. You really want to, you could go buy a big old bloody TV and we'll come home, we'll sit and watch it. It won't matter. I'll still sit there on edge, unsure what to do, where to be, and that's when I then book flights and bugger off somewhere else and think that I can run from the fact that I just can't sit comfortable. That not being able to sit comfortable is a clear sign that something's a bit off, and then you have to learn to just be more present and calm and content. And like I said, if I look back at my previous 6 months, there's been no journaling, no meditating, no walks. I'm not speaking to the therapist anymore. And that's why you see the outcomes that you do, why perhaps Saturday night happened. I didn't believe that Saturday night was some form of, there's something going wrong, I'm in a really bad spot mentally, and then suddenly you go out and you get blind drunk because you're trying to drink your problem away, for example. I don't know if that's the case. I really don't. I've been trying to think about it the last few days, but I still think if you're in a good place with mental health, you wouldn't have drunk the way that I did on Saturday. I was greedy, super, super greedy, drunk way too much, didn't eat enough that day. The consequences were that I ended up in a really bad spot. And so that's pretty much all I've got for you. I really do care a lot about mental health and other people's mental health. And I mean that a lot. Because it is difficult, really, really difficult. But once you start adding a few things in, it is amazing when you've made a choice to improve your mental health, where things can get to. So try it.